Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are happy to have you. My name is Abbas Dinwa. I am the founder and director of Transparency Information Technology Initiative, TransparencIT, and also with me, I have Francisca Chidu, who is the executive director of Citizens Connect, and will be joined by Amit, who is the principal lead of TransparencIT. Let me welcome Francisca to give a brief remark before we commence. Thank you. Francisca, please.
Okay, thank you, Abbas. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. So today we want to take a quick look at the database for anti-corruption cases, which we worked on over the last couple of years in Nigeria, looking at cases that's happened in Nigeria where a lot of people who have either embezzled public funds or people who have been tried over a period of time. And what TransparencyIT has done is to gather a lot of data, mobilize data, and see how from those data we can get insight as to what can we do better in terms of fighting corruption in Nigeria, and also by extension in Africa and the rest of the world. What are the lessons learned from our experience mobilizing data for anti-corruption? And also, we also look at what are, in terms of policy making, can we use this data to influence policies, advise prosecutors, and also what can researchers who are working on anti-corruption, money laundering, and other issues, what can they learn from the trends from this data? So that's what the session will try to highlight. And so what TransparencyIT has done is to take time to monitor some of these cases, follow what has been happening over a period of time, and then we're able to provide a database of high-level cases, high-profile cases, and also some other cases that have been managed by different agents of government, anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria. And so, but the interesting thing is that this data has been able to help a lot of people who are doing research. Some of them have been able to contact us to see what they can learn from the data. So today, during this session, we would try to explore conversation around the work that TransparencyIT has done. I'll go back to Abbas again for us to talk about why are we doing this? What did we try to achieve when we started this? And what are the challenges for us to gather this data? Don't forget that when it comes to corruption, a lot of people who are related in this case, these are people who are powerful, who are influential, and they will not want this thing to be in the public domain. But we have defied the odds by making sure that people, no matter who you are, wherever you are in the world, you're able to access this data and see what cases are ongoing to avoid subversion of justice and ensure that we continue to keep the campaign going for those who have not been brought to justice to actually get tried and convicted. So Abbas, let's go back again quickly to talk about the journey, where we started, where we are now, and also then we can talk about the lessons that can be learned.
All right, thank you very much.
And as we go, just before I call on Abbas again, it will help that as we go, we want to make this very interactive so that people can ask questions directly, because I can imagine from at least 50 participants who are here, some want to try to understand what has inspired this work, what are the things we've achieved, and okay, what are the lessons they can learn to also gather this kind of data in other parts of the world. So from time to time, we would give room for people to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francisca, for this wonderful brief and intro. First, let me begin by we were all kind of affected by the challenge of corruption, either directly or indirectly. And most especially, sometimes it happens, most especially sometimes it happens in the least developed countries, which is very, very common. This brings us back to the issue why we started this work. In most cases, people will perpetrate acts of corruption, but do not get the required sanction or punishment for perpetrating those acts in a way that it will not serve as deterrence to others. Eventually, you have people, especially people from high or top government offices, perpetrate an act of corruption and get away with it. And you have instances where a corruption case will linger in a court for over 8 years, for over 10 years, and for over 12 years. These are some of the challenges that we're able to see. And we feel if you want to achieve a very standardized level of transparency and accountability to ensure that people get the benefits of democracy and governance, then you have to apply sanctions to the people who steal public funds or who diverted public funds to their own personal use. If the sanction is not there, then there will not be the required deterrence for others not to partake or not to perpetrate those acts of corruption. So we holistically, we look at it and we felt it is not right for a corruption case to linger in court for over 8 years, for over 9 years, 10 years, or 12 years. And we felt there is need to have a strong system in place, especially in the judiciary, to be able to reduce delays and achieve speedy dispensation of justice. So, having identified this challenge, we try to build around a solution that is going to work for the judiciary, and a solution that is going to involve all stakeholders, both from the civil society, both from the courts, and also from the media, where we can, and from the government, where we can all work together and ensure that we bring a solution to this. So first, we started tracking the cases. We go to courts, we review those cases by having sentinels to visit the courts and also look at how these trials are conducted. And we document our processes, we document the data we collect from the courts, we review those data, and after we review the data, then we engage the relevant stakeholders. When we engage the relevant stakeholders with our own recommendations to show them this is the challenge, or this is what we think is not being done in the right way, and that is why these cases are taking as long as they are taking now. And from this, we also find out that there is also need to build a platform where citizens can come in, most especially using technology in a way that citizens can have an idea of what is happening in a sort of to galvanize their own support and spur actions from the citizens so that they will be able to look at those cases, engage relevant authorities, and also see what they can do to ensure that they promote judicial accountability and integrity. So basically, that is the beginning of the problem because of lingering of cases, and that's what informed our decision to initiate a process or a system like this to help fight corruption. So we use a lot of technology in the process. We believe data is key, and the best way you can do to use data to analyze the process is to have enough data that you can review, analyze the data, and provide insight from the data, which you can use to engage the stakeholders so that they will be able to see the gaps and also make recommendations so that they will be able to see. And that led us to develop the first national database of corruption cases in Nigeria. So that database have given citizens an opportunity to track cases on their own, and has also given them an opportunity to download cases based on the available data and also engage relevant stakeholders. So basically, this is why we started, and the whole aim is to ensure the quality and effectiveness of the judiciary in response to corruption cases in order to ensure there is deterrence by achieving speedy dispensation of justice.
Okay, thank you, Abbas. So for this session, we're trying to see how we can engage both the citizens, practitioners, and people in the civil society to enhance judicial transparency and accountability. Now, from our own experience, from the work we have done, we've seen that not too many people across the world, the case in Nigeria may be different from what happens in France, what happens in Switzerland, Mali, wherever in the world, or even in the UK. But the challenge there we see is that everywhere in the world, there's crime, there is corruption. But one of the things that we can see from the data is the accountability of the judicial system is also a way of checkmating what happens with some of these cases. So if we have a platform where we are able to track these cases, follow what is happening during trials, most of the people in the judiciary will know that they can't afford to drop the ball, or they can't afford not to progress cases. So from what we've done, from the work we've done, we've been able to continuously, even beyond the database, to highlight these cases on social media, create awareness on these cases. And we've shared, I think we've also shared the website so that you can see. But before I'll continue again, I'll go back to Abbas so we can do a quick walkover on what the data sets for corruption cases look like. But as I said earlier, one thing I want us to take from this session is the tool that we as actors, either you're researchers, civil society actor, or whether you are even on the side of government, you're a prosecutor or you're a judge, what are the lessons you can take from some of the experiences we have in Nigeria? Some of the things that we've discovered is that some cases have dragged for more than a decade. Why is that the case? This is because, unfortunately, when we are trying to try corrupt people, we also see people who have become influenced by corrupt officials, and sometimes maybe within the judiciary, who try to elongate these cases. But on the part of the citizens and even civil society, the moment we continue to follow these trials and highlight some of the issues from these cases, it puts pressure on the judges to do the right thing. And that's why even in other countries of the world, what we can do from our own experience is to see how we can now start to pay attention to different trials, especially for people who are working in the anti-corruption ecosystem. Because if you're not able to follow the trends, you will not be able to make and give advisory on some of the issues that are happening across the world in terms of money laundering and high-level corruption cases that we hear every day. But what we're fortunate that the media in some part of the world do the work of just talking about the cases. But beyond the media, we need to think critically of how we can continue to hold ourselves accountable and also put pressure on the judiciary to fast track these cases and ensure that people are brought to justice. So Abbas, I think for them to appreciate the data and the trove of data that has been gathered over the years, we are able to do a quick screen share of the corruptioncases.ng, and then just talk briefly about it. Then we come back and see if within the audience and there are people who would have maybe specific insight just based from looking at the data. They may just directly could see something that would prepare them to access more questions. That way it's more engaging.
All right. Thank you very much, Francisca. Earlier, like I said, I talk about the process, and the process led to the development of the database, which is corruptioncases.ng. I will talk a bit about the data, the website, and also what we have been able to learn from that. But before then, I also like us to understand that in achieving judicial integrity and transparency, when you are working from the angle of the civil society, partnership is always key. You can't get the result you want unless you work with the stakeholders in the system. So any data you have, any data you gather, most importantly, any insight you develop from the data, you have to share it with them and also seek their buy-in, their input, and also amplify those things so that you will have citizens support as well. And if you have their buy-in, then implementation will not be much of a challenge. So what the data have told us over the years is that it has revealed the extent to which cases are lingering in the hands of some judges, and also where cases are not lingering in the hands of other judges. This shows some level of effectiveness between the judges handling the cases. And that will lead us to a situation where you have a particular judge will handle as much as higher number of cases than the other judges. This basically is going to tell us why we need to assign cases in terms of giving responsibility to judges, and also is going to show us which judge is actually ensuring that cases are not taking longer than expected in his docket. So these are some of the things, and it's also been able to show us how long some cases are taken in court based on the type of the offenses that have been committed. Like for instance, if you take a money laundering case, which is in most cases perpetrated by people in the high positions of authority, those are cases that will linger for over 9 years, 10 years because of their nature and their and the tactics employed by some defense counsels in those cases. But if you take a case that does not involve a high-profile case like that, more of like a case of small abuse of office, or a case of maybe internet fraud and what have you. These are cases that involve small defendants who are, by virtue of their positions, are not wealthy or are not in high places, and those are cases that we find that will have speedy dispensation of justice. So the data is also telling us that there are a particular number of cases that take longer, and these are cases that attentions are supposed, the government and the stakeholders are supposed to pay close attention to ensure that they resolve these cases. Then it's also look at the compliance to the administration of criminal justice laws or acts in the country. Most importantly, it will show you the extent to which a judge is complying to the extant laws in the proceedings of the case, and why, if a judge is applying sanctions to erring defenders or erring and counsels or otherwise. So this is an opportunity. The data is also an opportunity to share information about whether a judge is following the rules and regulations during proceedings, or the judge is quite ignoring some of the aspects in order to favor a suspect or otherwise. So these are some of the things that we learn daily from the data we collect, and also from the data we have from the website. Francisco.
Okay, so enable me, let me share the screen so that sure I can share my screen. I'm trying to share my screen so that I just take the data sets. I can. So you just enable me. So I'm trying to, I see that the host. Or you can make me a co-host so I can share my screen. Okay, why we do that?
Go ahead, please. You can do that now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is what Abbas is just trying to highlight, but I think data is exciting when you see the numbers yourself, and you're able to appreciate what we're trying to explain. So what some from the trends of data that have been gathered, we realize that cybercrime is the highest that have been a number of cases that have been tracked, because these are cases of regular citizens, everyday citizens who have either been involved in cybercrime or they've actually defrauded people within and outside of Nigeria, and they've been brought to justice. So, but we've now seen that cases that are related to people who are high profile public officials have dragged over a period of time. So our data set also now shows the number of cases in terms of the spread and the different places where we've gathered these data. Some are from federal courts, some are from states. As you know, in Nigeria, we've got like 36 states. So like 40% of these cases are from state courts. And then we also have the federal, the capital and federal capital in Abuja. We have a high court there as well, where we are able to get at least AMA's data for 8.9% of the data coming from the Abuja High Court. So this kind of gives you the case history of the data that we have tracked over a period of time. You can easily type the name of the judges to find out which of these judges has over a period of time ensured that there is justice. Which of these judges, you can easily tell from trend, has dragged cases, and it becomes very suspicious in the manner in which some of these cases have been managed. We also can see the court's decisions in terms, we also have infographics that shows cases that have been decided. Interestingly, 58.5% of those cases have been decided. But few years ago, it wasn't up to this number. And that should show you what our work, like the advocacy work, has been doing in terms of ensuring that we highlight some of these issues and some of these cases progress, or some of these in courts. And then we've also had cases that have been on trial, that's still on trial, and some that have been suspended. And there are a number of cases that have been squashed or withdrawn. So we've now gotten like 56.5% of the cases showing that it's conviction, and then some have been discharged, 0.5, and just 1.5 were discharged and acquitted. Even though some of the cases look like people have been discharged and acquitted, you sometimes will, from the trend, we also see that some other people will still go back and try some cases if there are new lights in a case, or there are new evidence that somebody who has been acquitted should be tried, maybe for a new offense, or there are other issues that have come up after at the end of that trial. Then we also now saw the progression of the cases between 0 to 5 years. 91% of them span up to 0 to 5 years. 7.3% of the cases take 6 to 10 years. And it will interest you to know that the ones who drag as much as from the trends that we've seen, the cases that drag that long are also cases of politically exposed people, people who are high profile, that have the influence to ensure that they don't, this trial lingers and we don't even get justice. Then we've also had cases where at the end, the money stolen are taken back and put back into the government coffers. So just interesting, just yesterday, there was a case that has been on for, I believe that case has been on for up to 3 or 4 years. And a court has just said, and a highly politically exposed official of a former, what they call it, MD of the National Oil Company, who stole about 9.3, and who allegedly stole about $9.3 million, which they found in his house and stashed a lot of money stashed somewhere. He has been discharged and acquitted, and the judge said he can go with the money. And these are some of the issues. And how do you now question? How do you ask questions around? How did this person, who is a civil servant, we know what you do, we know your source of livelihood, how are you able to amass such wealth? So these are some of the questions that we on the civil society side and even people in the media need to ask questions. So if a judge is saying that a case that has lingered this long, with all the evidence that was presented, a judge could still acquit this person and say he can go back with the funds. So then that's why this work is very important, that we continue to highlight these cases, show discrepancies during trial, and also ensure that justice is done. But we may have setbacks, like some of the cases where you see a judge make a U-turn and say there was no even basis to charge someone that's stolen billions of dollars in public fund. So if you're a government official, we know what you earn, and that's why in countries, at least I know of the UK, they've got and some other countries have unexplained wealth. So if you've got an unexplained wealth order, if this person is unable to explain the source of this wealth, why now ask the person to take back the money? So these are the issues that we need to start to highlight, and the questions we need to raise in the work that we do. And also for those that are hopefully will be inspired to take on this work of tracking cases and following trials of corruption cases, especially in countries where corruption is very prevalent, and also those who are also looking at the global corruption outlook in terms of what is happening in the global landscape. How are we going to ensure that justice is done with the amount of information that we have on what is how the judiciary is also not being helpful with some of the cases that we have seen? Abbas, I'll come back to you now and see if you want to take some of the data sets and throw more light to them.
All right, thank you very much, Francisca. Before you, I would like you to leave the screen so that we'll take it up from where you stop. Interestingly, you can also see the next data set. The next data set. Okay, I think I can share it from here.
Okay.
Francisca, if you can hear me, can you share your screen back again? Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Interestingly, if you can see from the next data set, which looks at the cases history, you look at the level of cases that are taken long in terms of years, and those that are decided and those that are still on trial. So if you look at 2019, we have the highest cases that are still on trial and have lingered for over 5 years, which is taking about 329 cases. So you can imagine a volume of case like that that has taken at least some years, nothing less than 5 years, and those volume of cases are still lingering in the court. So these are some of the informed insights one can get from the data, and you can also have from the others data set. You can look at the states where most of these cases are prosecuted. That is going to tell you also prosecution of criminal cases are mostly by the jurisdiction or in which where those offenses were committed. So that is going to tell you areas or states in the country where in most cases this kind of offenses are committed, and it will help to make informed decision about where to put more energy in terms of preventing or stopping corruption from taking place. Then if you go down from the other end of the data set, also you can see there is some level of compliance with Administration of Criminal Justice Act and law. And there are a significant number of cases, which is about 15.7% of the total cases we have on the database, in which there is no total compliance in terms of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act or law by the judges. So this is also going to show us, I'll also highlight cases where we need to prep the attention of the judges and see that they do the right thing in following the external law. So these are some of the insights one can generate from the database, and we are also looking at improving those insights so that it's going to help the common citizen be able to understand and also track and follow cases individually without having to wait for us to give them more information about the cases.
Okay, so I've shared the data sets for those who have not seen it or just joining us. I think there's someone who has a hand up. So at this point, I would just have a quick quick contribution from participants to see if there are areas, specific areas in terms of what we've discussed so far, and also get input. Pressure, do you have the floor?
Thank you. My mute was not working. This is wonderful, Francisca. I just wanted to find out, do you track the financial implication to the system itself? Because the longer the case takes, the more it costs the fiscal. Number two, I wanted just also to find out, have you noticed any trend in relation to what the case is about, the person has been charged with, not necessarily being equating to the award? We have seen in South Africa that when it's a politician or someone who's well known, they get a lesser severe punitive. And what measures are you guys having in place to actually assist the oversight structures to hold those who are in office and also those who are in justice system to take accountability? Thank you so much for this. We are really appreciate it.
Thank you, Precious. So Abbas, please, you can respond to that.
All right, yes, thank you very much. I like the fact that this is a kind of issue that we face regularly, and beyond only the financial implications, before I comment on that, there are other implications that you also look at in as much as a case has taken long. But to begin with, the more a case has taken long before the judiciary, the more the cost of prosecution on the government. So that is going to make the government spend a lot of money in terms of prosecuting the case. And beyond that, our observation has also learned that, or rather revealed that, in most cases, these cases, when they take long, the prosecution end up losing the grip of the case. In some instances, you have witnesses that you want to present before the court. Those witnesses, either by circumstance, some of them will leave the country, or some of them, we have instances where you have that when you want to present a witness, you'll find that the witness is dead. So those things affect the outcome of the case. It also add more burden on the prosecution in terms of cost of implication to try that matter, and also make the prosecution to lose some vital evidence or witnesses for that particular case. And in most cases, it ends up that the prosecution will lose the witness because it doesn't have the right evidence or the right witnesses to present at the material time when required. So these are some of the implications of these issues. We track them, and also from the recommendations we make those recommendations and also send it to the responsible agency, like the oversight agency of the judiciary, so to say, the National Judicial Council. So these are some of the things. Then in terms of lesser sentence, like I said earlier, you find a high profile case will linger so many years in court, and at the end of the day, that person, because of his level of because being in a level of authority, either at that time or before, he will end up getting a lesser sentence. So in our recommendations to the National Judicial Council, we always compare the sanctions applied in the case as a result of judgment, and also the provision of the law in terms of that particular charge on which the defendant or the suspect was charged before the court, and look at those things and make recommendations to the Judicial Council and tell them, okay, we believe in our own analysis that a particular judge did not follow the right applicable sanction to sanction the defendant after delivering judgment. And in some instances, the National Judicial Council will call on the judge to seek for further explanation. And we also encourage the prosecution agencies, like the ones we have here, like the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission. We also engage them, and in most cases request them or recommend to them to appeal those cases in order for the right sanction to be applied on that defendant. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to contribute to the discussion at this point? There's someone. Yes, you can have the floor. Joy, please, you can have the floor. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, sorry if I missed this, but who has access to this dashboard? Is this a publicly available website and everybody can monitor it, or how does this?
Yes, it's open. It's an open database. It's an open database.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Great work.
Yeah, you can download easily. It's even in PDF, in Excel, in different formats.
Awesome. I'm really impressed. I think this is a really powerful tool. Good on you guys.
Thank you. Yes, so just to continue the conversation, there is corruption in itself. Often people still, there's a cost to corruption in terms of the harm it does maybe to an individual that has been, maybe you experience, someone has experienced cyber fraud. There is an immediate cost, and also emotional issue that has happened to people that have been affected. Then in terms of costs to corruption on citizens, especially when it involves high profile government officials embezzling public fund. But beyond this cost, in trying to chase those people who have stolen public money, and sometimes even people who have stolen from private citizens, there is also a cost to ensuring that there is justice. And that's why it's, I like the question, Precious, that you've asked. The truth is, beyond that cost that the government puts in, there's also even the cost to the advocacy work that is being done, organizations and funding to ensure that these people are brought to justice. Money has to be spent. Sometimes we feel like you are even spending so much to recover the money, but how do we ensure that there's even deterrent if we are not even closing some of these cases? Oh, you can hear me? Is that the case for everyone?
Hello, Francisca.
Can you hear me?
Yes, it's better now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I was speaking to myself. Yeah. So there is this cost. So I was trying to highlight that corruption itself is expensive. Expensive from the side of, first of all, it does a lot of harm to maybe an individual experiencing maybe cyber fraud, like you can see for most of the cases and on the database, a lot of individuals, private citizens who have defrauded people both within and outside Nigeria. Many of them have been brought to justice, obviously because they don't have the profile to be able to evade justice. Now that is a cost on its own. There's also cost of corruption relating to people who embezzle public funds, money required to provide social services and to provide housing for citizens and different things that could be put into the public purse. It's expensive. But now we have to think about the cost of trial, the cost of prosecution, the cost of getting justice. While that, if we now do an analysis in terms of what's the cost of chasing these cases and also recovering this money, often the money is still a lot in some cases that you still have to chase it anyway. But it's important that we don't forget that the judicial system is there to ensure that we don't have these recurring issues. It serves as a deterrent to other people so that we don't have more time celebrating cases that have been won in court while we are opening new cases that we could have averted, either by ensuring that we put systems in place for government to be more transparent in terms of the budgeting and ensuring that the money that have been put in the budget are spent for the right reasons. And that's why we also have other advocacy groups in the company and also people in open government partnerships, ensuring that we want to see the money that has been in the have they been spent for the right reason. And that's why beyond the work TransparencyIT does in tracking cases, we also look at service delivery. How have we been able to, the government, to deliver the services? If we're not as citizens asking questions what the money that have been budgeted for things have been done, and if we're not asking questions, holding the government accountable for improved service delivery, we will never really know a lot of money that have been spent or embezzled. And that's why the work that it's very critical that as we gather here, beyond just thinking about the work of ensuring that the judiciary is accountable and bring people who have stolen from the public to justice, we as civil society actors, as researchers, as even individual citizens also join in this work in ensuring that we track cases, we follow cases, we ask questions, and also do campaigns to ensure that people are brought to book. We can't just leave the word even for the media. Even these days, the media is thinking so much about other issues that are happening globally. In the last 2 years, the global pandemic has taken over the front burner on issues globally. But even with that, we can see that even in the heat of the pandemic, there's a lot of corruption that has hit a lot of countries. Like in Europe, even in the Americas, we've heard of people who have used stolen identity to take money that were meant to benefit money, and a lot of people have experienced benefit scam and all that. But how now can we start to think of data to solve problems around issues that have even emanated from the pandemic? So, and this is why this conversation is very critical, that beyond the case in Nigeria, our case in Nigeria is very peculiar, but for the rest of the world and those who are on this panel, what are the lessons you can take from our own experience on the work that we do that you can take back? The corruption in Nigeria may be different from what is happening in your own country, but everywhere in the world there's fraud. What are we doing about cases of the massive cases of funding that have been wasted during the pandemic, the ones that have been stolen? So this is, we will urge you that this may be an opportunity for us to start asking questions and start tracking cases and getting data on what has happened in the last 2 years since 2020 in terms of funds that have gone into the wrong hands. So I will again give opportunity for people to ask, to share their contribution based on the work that they do, beyond what we do in Nigeria.
Thank you,
Francisca,
Francisca. Let me also respond to one of the questions asked by the chat. Someone asked whether we track these cases up to appeal level. Interestingly, a case does not stop at the High Court. Case runs up to the Supreme Court, and we pay close attention to cases that were appealed to the either Court of Appeal or also to the Supreme Court, especially high-profile cases that have likely opportunity for the decisions of the lower court to be overturned by the superior, or rather the higher court. So we track cases also at the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. And what we usually do when we track those cases, whenever there is update regarding that particular case based on the decision of the Court of Appeal, then we update from our database to show exactly this is what happened. And when we feel there is also a violation of any law by the judges of the Superior Court of Records, the Court of Appeal, then we also make it part of our recommendations when we send it to the National Judicial Council, which is the oversight agency for the justice sector in Nigeria. And also, there is also a question about besides the profile of the accused, are there any reasons or trends you have uncovered to explain why those accused of corrupt behavior have been? Well, apart from the profile of the accused, mostly what they usually do, they jump bail, especially to the those committing lesser crimes. They will be arraigned before the court when the proceedings or trials commence. When they get bail, they jump the bail, and some of them will leave the country, and some of them will be in the country, but they will be in hard to find places, and as such, those cases will linger for a while, and in some cases the prosecution will apply for a trial in absentia. The trial will continue. At the end of the day, they may be convicted, but then sentence may not be delivered until when the defendants are arrested, so the sentence will be served by the judge when they are in court. So these are some of the other issues why or how people evade penalties for offenses they committed. Then this is also linked with the issue of corruption in the judiciary. The judiciary is not without corruption as well. I think the recent survey conducted by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, which is titled the National Corruption Index. Judiciary is seen as one of the most corrupt arm of government based on that report, and that report was released in 2020. So the corruption also in the judiciary also helps to help people to evade arrests, to evade penalties for offenses they committed. Thank you, Francisca.
Okay, thank you, Abbas. So Precious just asked how other people in other countries can start to mobilize data like we have.
Can you come again, please? I think your audio is a bit bad.
I said there's a question from Precious in the audience asking, in South Africa, if they decide to mobilize data like what we have this similar data set, what does it entail? What suggestions do we have for people who want to start gathering data like we have done? What can they do?
All right, that's great. I think the first thing to do is to we have different forms of criminal cases, So the first thing to do is to identify the type of criminal case you want to track based on the available data. And this will only be if you have the insight of the data, looking at the information at your disposal, which cases require more attention in terms of delays in trials, in terms of not getting the right sanctions or punishment, or where justice is not being served as the way it's supposed to be. So when you have that data, you can analyze to see it can be corruption cases, it can be rape cases, it can be trafficking cases, it can be a whole lot of criminal cases. Then when you identify that the most important thing is the problem you want to solve in the community. So if you identify that, the first thing you do is to create partnership and network. It's very important, is key, because for every solution you are looking at, if you are working from the angle of the civil society, you will not be able to get the desired result unless you partner with people from the inside. Partnering with people from the inside will give you the opportunity to reach out to as many courts as possible. You will have the opportunity to reach out to courts in your location, and also courts outside your locations. Then also you need to partner with the media. The media are everywhere, and they serve a very good source of information regarding these cases. So when you have this partnership, you need to build a team mostly of case trackers. We call them sentinels in our own case. Those sentinels will go to court daily, in the sense that when they go to court, whenever a case is ongoing, they monitor the trial. And what we do with the sentinels is we created a form of a template. That template, we call it a trial monitoring template for corruption cases in Nigeria. It's a template that guides the sentinels on the kind of information they are looking at when monitoring trial, and they will use those the template to input those information, so that it's going to be a form of a guide for them when collecting the data. And when they collect the data, we have in our system, we created a system where we have a desk review, and that desk review will guide us to sieve the data we receive and pick out the most important or relevant data that we are looking out for, and also validate the data before it will be transferred to our data analysts, who will impute the data on the platform that we have just developed, which is corruptioncases.ng. So basically, that is how we started. That's a process. We created partnership, and after the partnership, and we work with them as stakeholders, and we also get some people who started as volunteers at the commencement of the project, but later when we started to get funding from organizations that are interested in our work, then we put them on our payrolls and ensure that they go to courts to track those cases and get the right information that we can use to update the database. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, yeah. Precious, I believe this answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess we'll be in contact then, starting to see how we can mobilize. Thank you so much for this.
All right, thank you. Do we have other questions regarding what we have discussed so far? Okay. Yes.
So maybe I just want to go a little bit off, but still on this topic. Panama Papers that exposed quite a bit of politicians that were hiding money in different safe havens. Have you guys included those in your, because mostly countries decided to prosecute them in their own countries. Have you looked at that? Does your data also include tax evasion and stuff like that?
Okay, Abbas, are you going to take on that? Abbas?
Yes. I didn't get the question proper.
No, so she's asking question about the Panama Papers and the exposés that have been done on people stashing funds in tax havens. As far as I know, so far, we've not tracked data on that, but I do know previously within the civil society open government partnership in Nigeria, there was this beneficial ownership database. This is more for people who work in the extractive industry, oil and gas, mining. There was a database being worked on to gather information, and some of them would even highlight cases related to the Panama Papers. And yes, I think there's an opportunity to do work in that regard, but that's now more of in terms of international crime than local. So most of these cases and some of these cases are now being tried internationally. But again, the issue around politically exposed people has also made it difficult for even the governments in our own country, for instance, to now pick interest in some of these cases, because obviously some of the funds that have been stashed away in tax havens are stolen public funds. But if we want to get serious in fighting corruption, we should do the work. But I mean, while we're doing this work, there's also the work of for the government to even go and chase people who have stolen. But often when people are influential, there's not much than what the media just makes a lot of highlight some of these cases, and then there's not much in terms of campaign to ensure that either these funds are recovered. And yes, this is also an opportunity, perhaps maybe something that we may start to think about. And thanks for pointing that out, Precious. Okay, so I'll still wait to see if there are other people who want to. Is Frank around to talk about the court care and case tracking? Do we have Frank here now? Hello, Abbas, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I said, do we have Frank around now?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I see we don't really have much questions again. We don't really have questions from the audience. I would allow Abbas wrap up the sessions with a quick summary then of what we have discussed. Then I'll come back and say what we would suggest as next steps after this session.
All right. Thank you, Francisca. Let me also add that before I do that, there is some sort of benefit apart from what helps apart from using the database to also ensure speedy dispensation of justice. Over the time when we build this database, we have also learned that it helps to stop corruption from taking place, particularly with people from outside Nigeria who are mostly being either scammed or defrauded by some people within the country, some bad elements who reach out to them and see that they send out, they send money to them. So these are some of the things that we learn. People conduct due diligence search on our database. When someone reach out to them, they want to do business or transact with them, and they make some bit of search over the internet about their names, their whereabouts, and some issues like that. And before you know, the name will pop up in our database, and it will help them to learn this person has previously been convicted of an issue of criminal offense, or he is presently facing trial in court because of an offense he committed or something, and it will help them to be cautious in terms of transacting with him, and in some cases also try to avoid transacting with him. So this helps a lot in terms of stopping crimes from taking place. We have received a lot of emails for clarifications on that based on some of the names that were seen on our database. So in summary, our efforts in fighting corruption in the judiciary is to use data design a process and a system that we can review and analyze cases and also galvanize citizen support and partner with stakeholders in the judiciary, using insights from the data to help them with recommendations, to help guide them based on the gaps of trials of cases, and see how they can implement those recommendations in order to reduce the time a case takes in the court, or rather to ensure speedy conclusion of cases. And our partners in that, our process in that regard is, like we said, through monitoring of cases, and also we carry out public policy dialogue with stakeholders from the judiciary, the NGOs, and the citizens, so that we come up with recommendations based on what we have learned together, and also see how that is going to be applied. And we are also advocating for, we also believe that it's important to have a special court that is going to handle corruption trials. So we are also working to advocate around a bill that has already been submitted to the National Assembly, in the past assembly before this new one. A bill has been submitted for the establishment of special crimes court. So we are working to advocate the passage of that bill, so that it's going to help fast track those cases, and we'll have a speedy conclusion of those cases. From our experience, we have learned that there are special courts like the Code of Conduct Tribunal, where special cases regarding declaration of assets of politically exposed persons or public officials are being taken. And in the instance of those cases, because of the nature of speciality of the cases they take, those cases doesn't take long in court. Sometimes within 3 months, 6 months, a case will be dispensed with. So we are looking at the possibility of having a special crimes court where cases of corruption will be taken to, and eventually will have speedy conclusions of cases. So basically, this is it in summary, Francisca.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just quickly respond to some of the comments in the chat. So Sarah, yes, you talked about the volume of crypto mining and crypto jacking activities, which is at a high record. Well, yes, so I think all over the world, governments are currently engaging in terms of how they can set up regulations for crypto mining, cryptocurrencies in general. So at this stage, I think it's still very early on to actually dive into this. But I believe that, like in our own country currently, in Nigeria, crypto activities have been suspended. However, the government is engaging with, especially the Security and Exchange Commission and the Central Bank of Nigeria and other stakeholders are engaging with crypto enthusiasts on how they can regulate the sector. And I believe that this is the same for other countries of the world. People are still trying to understand the whole concept, and every day newer technologies are coming up, and what we can do is also sit and see what are some of the, why this may be a good way in terms of either investment or a new technology that would shape the future. We also see how this could be used for money laundering. And that's why all over the world, policymakers are beginning to think on how they can ensure that this doesn't happen. And in some other countries, like I said, the issue around unexplained wealth will still arise whether you put your money in crypto or not. If you have like what they call it, display wealth that you cannot account for, questions will still be asked. But it's just that in some countries, unexplained wealth is not such a big issue compared to some other countries, especially in Europe, where these things are highly regulated. And then Precious again asked, have you used this data to influence policy, legislation, and voter education? Yes, we do use this in terms of both advocacy work, and just to add that when we worked previously in 2020, we had sessions where we brought in the anti-corruption agencies and data scientists. We had a deep dive, a data dive, to look at the data set and also now engage these government actors on ways they can improve in terms of managing cases. What are the things we found out from how they have managed corruption cases? What are the things we also made suggestions on what they could do better? And also we highlighted some of these issues in a report and shared with agencies and other people who were part of this deep dive that we had in 2020. Hopefully in the near future, we would have more session and engagement, and also even in terms of collaborative work with this both state and non-state actors to see what we can do in terms of the information the trends we've seen from this data. Because since the pandemic, a lot of things have slowed down. Not too many people across the world. It's just now that people are beginning to get back to having physical meeting, and people still feel that they can't do much just sitting down behind the camera to have a meeting on Zoom. So, but we believe that as things gradually come back to normal, there'll be more opportunity for us to engage more. But as we do what we do, even if you follow TransparencIT, TransparencIT on what they call it on Twitter, you will see that from time to time we do even advocacy in terms of the work that we do. We do highlight cases, and sometimes from the work we do, we also get engaged by state actors to see what are the ways we can collaborate. So at the end of the day, it's not why this session is to throw lights on how this can be used as the judicial tool. It's not, we're not an attack dog to say, oh, these people are not doing their work well, but we're all more looking at how can they be better? How can the judiciary improve trials? How can they improve in terms of ensuring that cases don't linger for long? Also from the citizen side, how can we ensure that they hold government to account to ensure that we even avoid and mitigate corruption instances, especially with the budget. Recently, we had there was a recent attack in Nigeria, I'm sure in the news about a train, and we found out that in the budget, there was cost of what they call it, and surveillance to ensure that you can, if there's any attack or any issue on the train, it could easily be investigated. But unfortunately, even though that money was in the budget, it wasn't spent. And this is why the work we do is important. And why we do this work is also important for citizens to ask questions. And this is also what we expect for other people across the world to do in asking questions around what the government is doing with the funds. And for cases where people have stolen money, how are you asking questions around where we are with these cases? The more questions people ask, the more we put pressure on the judges to do the right thing and bring these people to justice. On this note, I would like to talk about where we see this going forward. I'm happy that this session is beginning to inspire people, especially folks from South Africa, who think that they can also mobilize data on either corruption cases or armed deals, like Precious highlighted, and other people who are on this forum who probably may be thinking about how do they start gathering information. For a lot of people in countries where the Freedom of Information Act is very alive, you can also exploit the use of the FOI to ask questions even from your Ministry of Justice. You also can, in most of the courts, public courts, you are allowed to even follow cases. And that way you can gradually start to mobilize data, get people, other volunteers, other citizens who share the same interests to join you in doing this work. It's not necessarily very easy, but I can tell you that over the past years, TransparencIT has been consistent in TransparencIT. Sorry, I keep mixing the words. Consistent in gathering this data, and I believe that this is also something that we can do. On this note, I don't know if we don't have much to say for it. Again, we won't want to drag the session. We just have 15 minutes left to the end of the session. Abbas, is there anything you want to say? Maybe you just wrap up the session if you don't have other questions.
All right, let me just add to what Precious asked about helping to move or support policies. Beyond the issue, I could remember during COVID, we actually used the project to advocate for continuity in trial of some of these high-profile cases. Given the fact that the coming of COVID has affected the court activities, and we felt it has also come with innovative processes which people has adopted in order to ensure that their work have not stopped. And we reach out to a lot of courts where we support them and also recommend to them the need to review their practice directions and to include virtual hearing. In most cases, it started with few courts and eventually it was taken almost in all states of the federation, where within the time period, most cases have adopted that policy through their practice direction and ensure that court activities were not paralyzed due to the COVID. So I think this is one thing I also want to add.
Okay, thanks everyone again for keep joining us at this session. We have dropped our contacts for you to engage us for that. If you've got questions and if the other work you think that you need to highlight and other ways you think you can follow us. Abbas, you may want to drop, I think Abbas already dropped the emails and also the follow us on social media as well. So we can take the conversation from there. I believe that we've been able to touch some of the issues that we've discussed, and hopefully we'll get more feedback from the audience. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again for coming, and do have a brilliant weekend.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.